At 6:12 a.m., the forest was already awake. A thin layer of fog clung to the valley floor, drifting between the pines as sunlight filtered down in fractured beams. The patrol route was quiet, just as it had been the day before, and the day before that. A stretch of marked trail cutting through terrain he knew by memory. 45 minutes from start to finish. Routine, predictable, safe. At 7:03 a.m., Ranger Daniel Mercer checked in over the radio. His voice was steady, calm, the kind of voice shaped by years of repetition. Beginning East Ridge Patrol, all clear. It was the last confirmed transmission anyone would hear from him. By noon, the quiet felt different. The ranger station overlooked miles of protected wilderness, dense forest, shallow ravines, winding streams that caught the light like broken glass. Nothing about the morning suggested danger. No storm warnings, no reports of aggressive wildlife, no stranded hikers. Just another scheduled patrol along a route Mercer had walked hundreds of times. Rangers do not get lost here. That was the unspoken rule. The terrain was mapped, monitored, memorized. Daniel Mercer had spent 12 years inside these boundaries. He could identify trails by scent alone. He trained younger officers on emergency navigation. If someone disappeared in these woods, Mercer was the one sent to find them. By 1:15 p.m., his vehicle was located near a fork in the trail, parked straight, doors closed, engine off. His hat rested neatly on the passenger seat. There were no signs of a struggle, no disturbed earth, no broken branches. The forest floor lay undisturbed beneath filtered light, as if nothing had interrupted the morning at all. His radio remained clipped to the dashboard mount, silent. The patrol route from that point narrowed into a familiar loop, one Mercer had documented in daily logs for years. It passed a shallow incline, curved along a creek bed, then rejoined the main trail less than a mile away. A distance he could have walked in under 15 minutes. Search teams moved quickly at first. Confident, methodical, they retraced his steps, called his name. Listened for an answer that never came. Hours passed. The forest did not respond. No footprints beyond the expected trail markers. No torn fabric. No dropped equipment. Even the tracking dogs, trained to follow the faintest trace of human scent, circled once near the incline and stopped, as if the trail had ended mid-step. By sunset, the temperature dropped and the fog returned, rolling in heavier than before. Headlamps cut through the dark and narrow beams, scanning bark and brush and empty space. A patrol route designed for safety, a ranger trained for survival, and a silence that refused to explain itself. Daniel Mercer was not the kind of man who invited mystery. At 38, he had built a life defined by structure, former military, search and rescue certified, wilderness survival instructor during the off-season. His colleagues described him with the same 3 words every time: steady, patient, precise. He believed in preparation the way other people believed in luck. The park had been his second home for more than a decade. Spanning over 800 square miles, the reserve was a layered wilderness of granite ridges, dense pine corridors, shallow riverbeds, and steep, uneven inclines carved by decades of erosion. To tourists, it felt vast and unpredictable. To Mercer, it felt mapped, ordered, familiar. He knew which sections flooded after heavy rain, which bends in the trail collected loose shale, which clearings lost radio reception for exactly 30 seconds before returning to signal. He had logged thousands of miles on foot within those borders. If someone twisted an ankle 5 miles from the nearest access road, Mercer was the one sent in to retrieve them. Routine was the backbone of his job. Every morning began the same way: equipment check, weather scan, radio calibration, route confirmation. The East Ridge Patrol, his assigned path that morning, was among the least demanding circuits in the entire park. A looping trail designed to monitor erosion points and discourage off-trail hiking. No cliffs, no unmarked ravines, no history of violent wildlife encounters. On paper, it was the safest route available. The weather that morning reflected that simplicity. Clear skies, mild wind from the northwest, visibility stretching uninterrupted across the valley floor. No incoming storm systems, no temperature drops projected until late evening. Conditions that invited hikers, not danger. Nothing in the environment suggested escalation. Nothing in Mercer's behavior did either. The evening before his disappearance, he had stayed late reviewing maintenance requests for trail signage. He joked with another ranger about an upcoming fishing trip. He called his sister on the drive home. His tone was ordinary, relaxed. There were no abrupt withdrawals, no signs of distress, no financial irregularities, no disciplinary reports. If there were cracks forming beneath the surface, no one had seen them. But routine can conceal tension the way still water conceals depth. In the weeks leading up to that morning, there had been minor inconsistencies along the East Ridge Trail, a misplaced boundary marker, a section of underbrush that appeared trampled, though no permits had been issued for backcountry travel in that zone. Small details, easy to dismiss, Yet Mercer had mentioned them twice in staff briefings, noting that the disturbances did not follow typical tourist patterns. He had intended to document them more thoroughly. The patrol that morning was supposed to clarify those irregularities, confirm nothing was wrong, close the file. At 6:48 a.m., he signed out a standard field kit, radio GPA's unit, sidearm first aid pack, water notebook, all accounted for. All routine. The East Ridge loop was estimated at 45 minutes, at most an hour. By 8:30 a.m., his check-in was overdue by 27 minutes. It was not immediately alarming. Rangers lost track of time during extended observations. Radio sometimes clipped against equipment and muted temporarily. A delayed response did not equal danger. But Daniel Mercer was exact with time. At 9:02 a.m., a second call was placed over the radio. No response. The valley remained still beneath open sky. The trail lay undisturbed in morning light. And somewhere along a path he had walked hundreds of times before. The most experienced ranger in the park had stepped into a silence that did not behave like routine. At 6:55 a.m., Daniel Mercer's patrol vehicle passed the final security gate and entered the East Ridge access road. The dashboard camera timestamp confirmed what everyone already knew. He was on schedule. At 7:03 a.m., he made his routine radio call. Beginning East Ridge patrol, all clear. There was nothing unusual in his tone, no background noise, no hesitation. The East Ridge loop began with a gradual incline through tightly spaced pines before opening into a narrow clearing that overlooked a shallow creek bed. From there, the trail curved west and reconnected with the main service path less than a mile away. It was a controlled circuit designed for visibility and ease of navigation. At 7:41 a.m., Mercer was expected to check in at the midpoint marker. He did not. The first missed check-in was noted but not escalated. Rangers occasionally delayed reports while assisting hikers or inspecting trail damage. Procedure allowed a 30-minute window before concern became action. At 8:12 a.m., a second call was placed from dispatch. Silence. By 8:97 a.m., 2 rangers were assigned to retrace the East Ridge route. They located Mercer's vehicle at 8:46 a.m. It was parked precisely where it should have been, angled slightly toward the tree line. The doors were locked, no visible damage, no sign of forced entry. His thermos remained in the cup holder. His field notebook sat unopened on the passenger seat. His GP's unit was missing. The trail beyond the vehicle appeared undisturbed. Boot impressions consistent with Mercer's standard issue tread extended from the driver's side door toward the incline. The prints were clear for approximately 40 yards, then gradually blended into the hardened surface of the path. The morning was still bright, visibility unobstructed, wind minimal. At 9:03 a.m., additional units were dispatched. They followed the incline carefully, scanning for deviations. No broken branches, no displaced stones, no signs of a fall. The creek bed below showed no recent disturbances in sediment. Even the loose gravel along the western curve remained settled. At 9:37 a.m., a K-9 unit was deployed. The dog tracked Mercer's scent from the vehicle to the midpoint clearing. There, it circled twice, tugging against the leash as if confused. It attempted to re-establish direction toward the creek, then stopped abruptly. The handler later described the behavior as a wall. No scent trail extended beyond the clearing. By 10:15 a.m., the search perimeter widened. Helicopter surveillance scanned the surrounding forest canopy. Thermal imaging detected nothing abnormal. No heat signatures in ravines. No movement off trail. The weather remained stable, the sky cloudless, the terrain unchanged. At 11:42 a.m. a ranger discovered Mercer's GPA's unit near the edge of the clearing. It lay on the ground beside a cluster of low brush. The screen was intact, battery at 70%. The final recorded waypoint timestamp 7:32 a.m. approximately 10 minutes before his scheduled midpoint check-in. Coordinates placed him precisely within the clearing where the scent trail ended. There were no scratch marks on the casing, no mud embedded in the seams. It looked placed, not dropped. The discovery shifted the atmosphere. Until then, the search had operated under the assumption of injury, a misstep, a concealed fall, an accident hidden by terrain. Now, the narrative fractured. If Mercer had dropped the GPAs unintentionally, why was there no disruption to the ground beneath it? If he had removed it deliberately, for what reason? The device was a primary navigational tool, though unnecessary for someone of his experience. At 12:30 p.m., search teams extended into the adjacent forest grid. They moved in synchronized lines, spaced 10 feet apart, scanning every depression and shadow. Radios crackled with status updates. The forest absorbed the noise without echo. Hours passed. No torn fabric, no blood, no drag marks. No sign of animal activity. No evidence of struggle. The clearing where his trail ended became the focal point. Investigators examined soil density, root structures, elevation shifts. Nothing suggested a sinkhole or concealed cavity. The terrain was stable bedrock layered with shallow topsoil. By late afternoon, doubt replaced urgency. Experienced trackers reviewed the boot impressions leading from the vehicle. Stride length normal, no indication of haste, no abrupt pivot or change in direction. His final confirmed steps aligned with routine patrol movement. Delay at 5:18 p.m. The official status changed from delayed contact to missing person. The language was procedural. The implication was not. Search teams continued past sunset. Floodlights illuminated the clearing in stark white beams, casting elongated shadows between trees. The temperature dropped rapidly as fog crept back into the valley, muting sound and swallowing distance. The GPA's unit remained bagged as evidence. The vehicle remained where it had been found, and in a space less than 100 yards wide, between the incline and the creek. The most experienced ranger in the park had walked forward, and then, without disturbance, without sound, without trace, ceased to exist within the landscape he understood better than anyone. By the second day, the search transformed from reaction to operation. Grid patterns expanded outward in widening rings from the clearing. Additional rangers arrived from neighboring districts. Volunteers were briefed, assigned sectors, instructed to document anything unusual, no matter how small. Helicopters swept the ridgelines at dawn and again at dusk, when shifting light exposed subtle changes in terrain. Nothing changed. The official report cataloged the facts with restraint. Last confirmed radio contact at 7:03 a.m. EGPA signal ending at 7:32 a.m. EGPA secured. Equipment intact. No evidence of struggle. No environmental hazards present within the immediate radius. The absence of evidence became its own line item. The first theory considered was medical emergency, a sudden cardiac event, a stroke, disorientation followed by collapse into a concealed depression. It was plausible. Even the strongest bodies fail without warning, but Mercer's annual physical, conducted 3 months prior, showed no irregularities. He was physically fit, no history of heart complications, no reported dizziness or fatigue. More importantly, exhaustive ground searches revealed no body within a 3-mile radius. Thermal scans detected no remains hidden beneath brush or shallow soil. If he had collapsed, the forest would have kept him visible. The second theory suggested a fall. Though the East Ridge Loop was considered low risk, uneven rock formations dotted the western curve. A misstep near the creek bed could result in injuries severe enough to immobilize him. Investigators examined every incline, rappelled into narrow crevices, probed beneath outcroppings. The sediment along the creek showed no disturbance consistent with impact. No slide marks, no displaced stones, no fabric fibers caught on jagged edges. The terrain refused to cooperate with the explanation. Wildlife encounter came next. Black bears had been sighted in distant sectors of the park. Mountain lions, though rare, were not impossible. An aggressive confrontation could explain sudden silence. Yet there was no blood, no drag trail, no scattered equipment. Predatory attacks leave signatures. Even efficient predators disturb the environment. The clearing remained intact, as if preserved. More speculative conversations emerged quietly among staff. Voluntary disappearance. The idea felt incompatible with Mercer's history, but procedure required it be examined. Financial records were reviewed. Bank accounts stable, no unusual withdrawals. Phone logs showed no secretive contacts. Personal life unremarkable in its steadiness. He had future plans documented in his calendar. Training sessions scheduled. Vacation time approved months in advance. There was no preparatory behavior. If he intended to vanish, he chose a method that erased not only himself, but the mechanics of departure. The GPE's unit complicated every theory. Forensic analysis revealed no fingerprints other than Mercer's, no trace fibers suggesting external handling. The device had powered down at 7:34 a.m. 2 minutes after the final waypoint logged. There was no indication of impact damage. Placed, not dropped. Why disable a navigational tool on a routine patrol? Another detail surfaced during review of radio logs. At 7:28 a.m., 5 minutes before the GPA's recorded its final coordinate, a faint burst of static interrupted an unrelated transmission from a ranger station miles away. It lasted less than a second. Too brief to flag at the time. In isolation, meaningless. In context, unsettling. Technical analysis attributed the interference to atmospheric fluctuation, signal bounce, routine anomaly. But routine anomalies were accumulating. As days turned to weeks, the search perimeter stretched beyond rational expectation. Divers combed the deeper sections of the creek system. Mounted units surveyed remote ridgelines. Trail cameras were examined for unexplained movement. None captured Mercer beyond his departure that morning. Eventually, language shifted. Active search became limited operation. Limited operation became suspended effort. The case file thickened with documentation yet remained hollow at its center. Among the rangers, conversations grew more cautious. They spoke of other disappearances in distant parks, experienced hikers, hunters, individuals accustomed to isolation. In each case, a similar pattern emerged: sudden silence in familiar terrain, minimal environmental disturbance, searches yielding nothing conclusive. Officially, no connection existed. Unofficially, the resemblance lingered. The East Ridge Loop reopened to the public 6 weeks later. Signage restored, boundaries inspected. The clearing where Mercer's trail ended was measured, photographed, cataloged. It remained unchanged. The investigation concluded without resolution. No body recovered, no confirmed cause, no evidence of foul play, no confirmation of accident. Only a patrol route, documented in precise detail, that carried a man trained to survive through wilderness and delivered him to a point where explanation stopped. Months passed, then a year. Daniel Mercer's status did not change. Officially, he remains missing. No presumption declared. No closure granted. His locker at the ranger station was cleared but not reassigned for weeks, as if the act of replacement might confirm something no one was prepared to accept. The East Ridge Loop continues to operate as scheduled. New rangers walk the same incline at dawn. They check the same midpoint marker. They stand in the same clearing where the GPA signal ended and the scent trail dissolved. The terrain looks ordinary, manageable, predictable. Visitors pass through unaware. There is no plaque, no barrier, no visible scar in the landscape to suggest that anything irreversible occurred there. The forest did not collapse inward. It did not reveal a hidden fault line or open a cavern beneath his feet. It simply continued as forests do, indifferent to absence. For Mercer's family, the uncertainty settled differently. There was no final call, no last message layered with meaning. Only routine words spoken into a radio at the beginning of a shift, the kind of sentence repeated thousands of times without consequence. Beginning East Ridge Patrol. All clear. In missing persons cases, time usually produces something. Remains, evidence. A fragment that narrows possibility into fact. Here, time produced nothing. Theories remain suspended in equal weight. An accident without trace. An encounter without evidence. A decision without motive. Each explanation requiring a break in logic somewhere along the line. The most unsettling element is not what might have happened. It is what did not. No disturbance, no witness, no error recorded in procedure. A man trained to track others left footprints that simply stopped. The clearing still receives morning light the same way it did that day. Wind moves through the pines in a low, steady rhythm. The creek bends west and continues its quiet path over stone. Somewhere between the incline and the water's edge, within less than 100 yards of mapped terrain, Daniel Mercer stepped beyond understanding. In the silence that followed, has never offered an answer.